Okay, so, week 2. This week's subject is judgment. Now, with that, it's more about how we subconsciously judge people. So what I did was I asked a few people what their first impressions of me were. Most of them were oddly the same, but I'll let you guys take a look at that right about now. What were your first impressions of me?
You? So just saw you as a random person. I didn't know much about you, and still I don't know much about you. But generally, very nice guy, very nice guy. Quite interested in helping other people when they're in need. Yeah, an all-round generally really nice guy.
Everyone has more to them than what appears on face value, so I don't think in terms of first impressions. I mean, as Portia and Bethan said in their video, everyone can't help but make first judgments when they meet anyone, and that is true, but I can't remember any of my first impressions of people. The way that I view people whenever I meet or see anyone for the first time is that basically everyone who is new to me is a blank canvas, basically, and the more time that I spend with anyone that I'm meeting for the first time, I allow them to fill in the blanks in this canvas in my head of what they are as a person and not just what I think they are, because that is always going to be a shade of what they are as an actual person, you know? There's a quote that I think applies here very well. The quote is from William Goldman, who, if you don't know, is a famous American screenwriter who wrote films like The Princess Bride, as well as the book it's based on, his own book, All the President's Men, Misery, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So yeah, he's got a pretty good track record. And in one of his books that he wrote, there's this famous 3-line sentence that he wrote at the beginning of his book, and he used it in a different context, but I think it can be applied to many other things outside of the context he was using it for. But essentially, the quote is, the 3 words that he used are, nobody knows anything. And in this context, on the subject of judgment, I think it applies as well, because that's the way that I think as well, that I don't know anything, and nobody else knows anything about anybody else, not until they spend enough time with them to really know them enough to think anything, you know, substantial about anyone else. So I think that should be remembered at times, that nobody knows anything. As for what I think of you now, I think that you are a top bloke. I mean, whenever I got to know you better, talk to you more, especially at the VidCogs gathering, I felt that we could talk quite freely between one another, that we had a good rapport going. That you're one of those people that if we spent more time together, I think that we could talk just for hours and hours talking about whatever shit we could think of in that time that we had. Plus, you have the spirit of Tom Baker's Doctor inside you, so that's always a good thing. And more than anyone else on Facebook, your sharings of the funny memes to do with Doctor Who and any other nerdy type stuff that happens to be floating around, I don't know where you find them, but wherever you find them, they're brilliant, and you more than anyone else is who I like and share myself, those photos to my timeline and all that stuff. I feel like I'm doing it too much and that's almost kind of stalkerish and that I should probably stop. But come on, there's so much coolness, I can't help but...
Of you?
Yeah.
If I go to be honest, I don't feel that I don't like to make preconceptions. I always like, because the thing is, in psychology they say you make a preconception based on the physical appearance. And quite a lot of the time you'll assume a certain personality, whether they're friendly, whether they're aggressive, this, that and the other. And I've always seen you to have a friendly face, which was born out when I actually finally got to know you.
So, as you saw there, most people's opinions of me are more or less the same. Whether that's just because I tend to be a bit like an anime character and dress mostly the same if I can help it. But then what I asked them was what they thought people judged them by, what they thought people's first impressions of were. Now with this, due to time constraints, I've had to leave a couple of people out. Sorry guys. So, Roxy,
Yeah.
how do you feel you're judged by people when they first see you?
It can depend. I mean, I swear some people will like make instant snap decisions about me, and they go, some people go, oh no, is that a man or a woman, or is it this or that? And quite a lot of the time, they'll assume certain things. So they assume that I like men, or they assume that, oh no, is she a boy or a girl, or oh no, I think she might be a boy. There's lots of things about gender and sexuality I'm pretty assumed before I even say a word.
Personally, I think people see me at first quite intelligent, but when they get to know me about after 4 or 3 weeks time, they see me quite dumb and not actually knowing what he's doing, and quite slow at sometimes, I guess. Humorous, but also have a slight uncomfortable about themselves, stuttering and everything.
And how do you feel that often differs with the people who get to know you more?
I think sometimes, quite a lot of the time, I think people have preconceived stereotypes about what they believe someone who's transgender is. So when they actually get to talk to me and find out, actually, I'm a lovely, wonderful, friendly person who might actually not want to, be sleeping them for 50 quid down a frickin' back alley.
That was very hard, actually. I think they would have to, for people to actually guess who I am, because I don't actually, as a first impression, I don't get to say a lot, and I don't like to say, reveal a lot about myself as a person. For people to actually know me, they have to actually either work with me or have a constant activity with me in some way, socializing, working with each other. Otherwise, they wouldn't know much about me at all.
Hey, so you've seen that, and obviously you saw how they felt those opinions had changed. But what I didn't sort of broach on at all so far is how I judge people, and ironically enough, I'm quite guilty of what a couple of those people actually said. I'll be honest. As like I say, I feel really bad about that because I shouldn't do that. Nobody should do that. They should get to know a person first. So with this topic this week, I've over the week been reflecting on how I judge people and how I may need to reassess how I personally judge people, because that's the thing which I've noticed I don't do, and that's bad of me. And when it comes to judgment, you shouldn't judge people, ironically enough. Sorry guys, I'm bunged up with a cold, so if there's a lot of jump cutting, it's because, yeah. What the fuck? I can't even think. This is really a difficult topic to get onto, because it forces you to think about how your preconceptions of people, which are based on knowledge, your judgments of what you make of people is based on your knowledge of pre-existing history with somebody of that particular style. What I've noticed is people tend to judge a lot more than they intend to, and sometimes it's snap decisions. There was one time when I was 16, 16. There was one time when I was 16, I was walking back to the train station. I was dating a girl in Swansea, walking back to the train station with her, so to say goodbye, because I was heading back to Cardiff. And the strangest thing happened. The guy came over to me asking for a cigarette. Now, at this point in time, I would have been dressed more or less like an emo goth type thing, and people used to assume I smoked. With that, I said I didn't smoke. It actually led to the point where he punched me because he thought I was lying. At which point his friend dragged him away. Why his friend didn't drag him away sooner, I don't know. But the point is I got basically attacked for not having cigarettes. Which, that's a really iron version of prejudice. Because they were assuming that just because I dressed like an emo stroke goth, I had cigarettes on me, which I didn't. But judgment's a tricky subject, which is why I've been lost for words and rambling all over the place for this video. So I do apologise to those who have stayed this long. I think the only sort of lesson I can teach out is, firstly, most people are wonderful. They're happy to help you in many ways, even if it is for a video on judgment. I think that's what I've bought from this week, is to stop judging people so easily. I mean, okay, yes, I am open enough to let my opinions of people change, but at the same time, I still judge people, and that's bad. So from this week onwards, I'm making a conscious effort to judge less, and I hope you guys do as well. Anyway, this has been DDD Tom and a year of, and I will see you next week.